Good evening, dear listeners. As the day gently wanes and the world outside begins to soften into twilight, I invite you to find a cozy spot where you can settle in and relax. This evening, we embark on a soothing journey through time, exploring the quiet yet intricate world of medieval guilds and their candle production scheduling, as well as the meticulous specifications of wick lengths. Imagine a time when the flicker of candlelight was the heartbeat of the night, illuminating homes and hearths in a dance of warm, golden glow. In our exploration, we will delve into the serene practices that govern the lives of candle makers, the guilds that formed around this essential craft, and the gentle rhythms of their schedules. We will uncover how the crafting of candles was not merely a trade, but a harmonious blend of artistry and precision, steeped in the traditions of community and collaboration. As we meander through the history of these medieval guilds, we will learn about the dedication and care that went into the production of each candle. From the selection of wax to the careful crafting of wicks, every aspect was imbued with a sense of purpose. The guilds, with their structured scheduling, ensured that each candle was made with the utmost attention to detail, reflecting the commitment of artisans who sought to bring light into the lives of those around them. We will also touch upon the significance of wick length specifications, a seemingly small detail that played a crucial role in the functionality and beauty of the candles. You will discover how these specifications were not arbitrary, but rather a reflection of knowledge passed down through generations, allowing for optimal burn times and luminous displays. The balance of art and science in candle making will reveal itself, inviting you to appreciate the craftsmanship involved in this everyday necessity. As we drift further into this tranquil narrative, let the calming cadence of the words wash over you, guiding you into a state of relaxation. Allow the soothing sounds of the past to envelop you, creating a serene backdrop that promotes restful slumber. So, dear listeners, as we prepare to immerse ourselves in the gentle history of medieval guilds and their candle-making practices, take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the weight of the day lift from your shoulders and let your mind wander to a simpler time, where the flickering flames cast soft shadows, and the air was filled with the scent of pure beeswax. Join me now, as we delve into this soft-spoken exploration of the monotonous yet fascinating history of medieval guilds, their candle production scheduling, and the precise specifications of wick lengths. Close your eyes if you wish, and let the soothing rhythm of the story guide you into a peaceful state of relaxation. The journey begins now. The history of candle production within medieval guilds is a topic that has been notoriously overlooked in the annals of history, yet it merits examination for its illustrative insights into the socio-economic and administrative frameworks of the period. The earliest historical records of such manufacturing practices can be traced back to the 11th century in Europe, specifically in the region that would become known as Flanders. Notably, the city of Ghent, with its burgeoning trade and commerce, became a focal point for candle makers, or candlemakers, as they were colloquially known. In the year 1095, a charter was granted to the craftsmen of Ghent, establishing regulations governing the production of candles and the lengths of wicks. This charter, known as the Candlemaker's Privilege, was attributed to the ruling Count of Flanders, Philip of Alsace, who sought to standardize the production process, thus ensuring the quality of this essential commodity. Architectural records from the time indicate that specialized workshops, or fabrici, were constructed, often with large windows allowing natural light to facilitate the delicate work of candle production. The administrative procedures surrounding candle production were equally meticulous. Guilds were formed, and one of the earliest known guilds dedicated to candle making was established in 1190 in the city of Cologne, Germany. The Zunft der Wachskerszenmacher, Guild of Wax Candle Makers, instituted a series of stipulations regarding the production schedules and wick length specifications. Meetings were held weekly in the guild hall, a stone structure characterized by its robust timber beams and a centrally located hearth for the illumination of proceedings. The minutes of these meetings reveal a regimented approach to scheduling production, with specific days allocated for the crafting of various candle types, including taper candles, votive candles, and the more ornate altar candles. As the 13th century progressed, the candlemaking guilds became increasingly structured. In 1285, the guild in Paris, known as the Société des Chandeliers, formalized a decree that mandated the length of wicks for taper candles to be no less than 18 inches, a specification rooted in the desire to optimize burning time and efficiency. This regulation was not merely a suggestion but rather enforced through periodic inspections conducted by guild officers who donned distinctive robes for such occasions, thereby marking the seriousness of their duties. Daily routines within the guilds were characterized by a monotonous yet essential rhythm. Craftsmen, known as apprentices, would rise at dawn to begin their work, which involved the meticulous melting of tallow or beeswax in large cauldrons. The architectural layout of the workshops was often dictated by practical considerations, with the cauldron placed centrally for ease of access. Apprentices were tasked with stirring the molten wax, a process that required considerable endurance, as it could last several hours. The precise temperature of the wax was critical, and guild standards stipulated that it must be maintained between 140 degrees Fahrenheit and 160 degrees Fahrenheit to ensure optimal pouring consistency. Once the wax was adequately heated, it was poured into molds. The molds themselves were typically constructed of tin or wood, with the former providing a smoother finish. In 1320, the Guild of London introduced a decree specifying that all molds used for taper candles must have an internal diameter of precisely 1 inch, a regulation aimed at maintaining uniformity in the product. The pouring process was often conducted in a systematic manner, with apprentices assigned specific roles, such as pouring, cooling, and later trimming the wicks. The specification of wick lengths continued to evolve through the centuries. By 1365, the Guild of Bruges mandated that all wicks used in candles must be made from tightly twisted cotton fibers, measuring no less than 3 inches in length for standard taper candles. This specification was documented in the Book of Regulations, a ledger that chronicled the various standards established by the Guild over time. This book served not only as a guideline for current practices but also as a historical account of the evolution of candle production. In the late 14th century, the role of the master candlemaker became more pronounced, with individuals such as Master Heinrich von Hohenberg in Nuremberg, who was noted for his adherence to the Guild's stringent regulations regarding wick lengths and the type of wax used. Under his supervision, the workshop was renowned for its efficiency and the high quality of its products. Architectural. In summary, the history of candle production within medieval guilds is one marked by an unwavering commitment to quality, precision, and community engagement. Through the establishment of rigorous construction methods, meticulous maintenance procedures, detailed financial records, defined personnel roles, and precise technical specifications, these guilds fostered an environment in which craftsmanship could thrive, albeit in a manner that may be perceived as exceedingly monotonous. The legacy of these practices endures, reflecting the importance of routine and regulation in the pursuit of excellence in craftsmanship that resonates through the ages. In the realm of medieval guilds, the construction methods and materials used in candle production were governed by a stringent adherence to established norms. The primary materials utilized in the crafting of candles were tallow and beeswax, both of which had distinct properties and applications. Tallow, derived from rendered animal fat, was the most common material employed due to its cost-effectiveness and accessibility. The procurement of tallow would often occur in the late autumn months, specifically between October and December, when livestock was routinely slaughtered. This ensured a steady supply for production needs during the winter months when candlelight was most sought after. The method of candle construction involved a process known as dipping, which was prevalent between the years 1200 and 1400. During this period, it became standard practice to dip wicks into molten tallow multiple times to achieve the desired thickness. A typical dipping cycle would consist of immersing the wick into tallow for a duration of approximately 5 seconds, followed by a cooling period of 10 seconds at ambient temperature, a practice meticulously recorded in guild ledgers. By the end of a cycle, it was common for a candle to possess a diameter ranging from 1.5 to 2.5 centimeters, depending on the number of dips applied. In contrast, beeswax candles, while significantly more expensive, often costing up to 3 times as much as their tallow counterparts, were favored for their cleaner burn and pleasant aroma. The beeswax was sourced primarily from local beekeepers, and its procurement was typically carried out in the late summer months, specifically during the months of July and August, when honey harvesting was at its peak. This ensured a timely supply of beeswax for the high-demand winter season. Maintenance of candle production facilities was an equally mundane yet crucial aspect of the trade. The buildings used for candle making were often simple structures composed of timber with thatched roofs, typically measuring about 6 meters in width and 10 meters in length. The interior layout was standardized to include a melting room, where tallow was heated in large cauldrons over a controlled fire, and a dipping area, where craftsmen would perform the actual candle making. Routine maintenance procedures included the inspection of fire sources, with a guild mandate stating that all fires used for melting tallow must be contained within a stone hearth to prevent accidental conflagration. Regular cleaning of the dipping apparatus, which consisted of wooden frames holding multiple wicks, was mandated every fortnight to ensure optimal production conditions. This cleaning process involved the removal of residual tallow and soot, a task that could take up to 3 hours depending on the level of buildup. Financial records from guilds during this period reveal a consistent pattern of costs associated with candle production. A detailed examination of the guild's financial ledgers from the year 1350 indicates that the average cost of tallow was approximately 8 pence per stone, approximately 6.35 kilograms, while beeswax was recorded at an average price of 24 pence per stone. The cost of additional materials, such as wicking, typically made from flax, was nominal, averaging around 1 penny per 100 meters. The guilds also maintained meticulous accounts of labor costs. A skilled candlemaker, often referred to as a chandler, could expect to earn between 3 and 4 pence per day, while apprentices, who were usually bound to a master for a period of 7 years, earned a meager 1 penny per day, supplemented by room and board. These financial records were crucial in maintaining transparency and accountability within the guild, with annual audits conducted every Michaelmas, September 29th, to assess the financial health of the guild. Personnel within the candle guilds were distinctly categorized, with specific job descriptions delineating the duties and responsibilities of each role. The chandler, as the master craftsman, was responsible for overseeing the production process, managing apprentices, and ensuring compliance with guild regulations. The chandler would typically supervise a team of 2 to 3 journeymen, who were skilled but not yet masters in their own right. Journeymen were tasked with the actual candle dipping, as well as preparing the tallow for melting. Apprentices, who began their training around the age of 12, were primarily engaged in menial tasks. These included gathering raw materials, cleaning tools, and performing preliminary dipping under the supervision of more experienced craftsmen. The apprenticeship would culminate in a final test known as the masterpiece, wherein the apprentice was required to produce a standard candle of exceptional quality to demonstrate their proficiency. Successful completion of this test would grant the apprentice the title of journeyman. Technical specifications for candle production were rigidly defined within guild regulations. The standard wick length for candles produced by the guilds was established at 30 centimeters, optimized for a consistent burn time of approximately 2 hours when the candle was fashioned from tallow. Adjustments to wick length were permitted only under specific circumstances, such as the use of beeswax, where a shorter wick measuring 25 centimeters was recommended to prevent excessive burning rate due to the higher melting point of beeswax. The guilds also mandated that all candles produced must adhere to a uniform weight specification, which was set at 1 pound, approximately 0.45 kilograms, for the standard candle. This weight was crucial, as it influenced pricing and consumer expectations. The guild would conduct regular inspections to ensure compliance with these specifications, and any deviations could result in penalties, including fines or a temporary suspension from production. In summary, the history of medieval guilds and candle production illustrates a highly structured and regulated environment where every aspect of the process was meticulously documented and adhered to. From the selection of materials and construction methods to the maintenance of facilities and financial records, the guilds operated under a framework that prioritized efficiency and quality. The personnel involved in the process, from chandlers to apprentices, played a vital role in maintaining these standards, while technical specifications ensured a consistent product that met the demands of consumers. This legacy of formality and attention to detail in the candlemaking trade remains a testament to the importance of routine and regulation in the pursuit of excellence in craftsmanship. In the realm of medieval guilds, the construction methods and materials used in candle production were governed by a stringent adherence to established norms. The primary materials utilized in the crafting of candles were tallow and beeswax. In summary, the process of candle production in medieval guilds was a complex amalgamation of construction methods, maintenance routines, financial oversight, personnel management, and technical specifications. Each aspect played a crucial role in the successful operation of candle-making enterprises, which were not only vital for illumination but also served as a reflection of the social and economic fabric of the time. Through diligent record-keeping and adherence to guild regulations, candle makers were able to navigate the challenges posed by fluctuating material availability and market demands, ensuring the continued relevance of their craft in medieval society. The construction methods and materials employed in the production of candles during the medieval period were pivotal in ensuring both the quality of the product and the adherence to guild standards. The principal materials used for candle production included tallow, beeswax, and, occasionally, spermaceti, which was derived from the sperm whale. The use of tallow, primarily sourced from rendered animal fat, was more common among lower-income households and smaller guilds, while the use of beeswax was typically reserved for higher-quality candles, often utilized in ecclesiastical settings or by affluent households. The process of candle making began with the selection of raw materials. Tallow, which was often procured in large quantities from local slaughterhouses, required several steps before it could be used. The fat was first rendered to remove impurities, a process that involved melting the fat in a large cauldron, typically made of iron and heated over an open flame. This method of rendering was not only labor-intensive but also time-consuming, often taking several hours. The rendered tallow was then cooled and stored in large wooden barrels, measuring approximately 50 gallons in capacity, until needed for production. Beeswax, on the other hand, was procured from local beekeepers, who sold their wax in blocks weighing approximately 5 to 10 pounds. The quality of beeswax was often assessed by its color and the absence of impurities, with lighter colors being preferred. The construction of the candles themselves followed a rigorous protocol, often dictated by the guild regulations. The most prevalent method utilized was the dipping technique, which involved immersing a wick, typically made from braided cotton or linen measuring 1/4 inch in thickness, into melted wax or tallow repeatedly until the desired thickness was achieved. It was common for a single candle to require 20 to 30 dips to attain a diameter of 1 inch. This process would take several hours and required a careful monitoring of temperature, which ideally should be maintained at around 140 degrees Fahrenheit to ensure optimal wax adhesion. In terms of maintenance procedures, candle makers were required to adhere to specific guidelines set forth by the guild. The equipment used in candle production, including the rendering cauldrons and dipping frames, needed to be cleaned and maintained regularly to prevent contamination and ensure efficiency. The cauldrons were typically scrubbed with coarse bristle brushes and allowed to dry completely before being reused. The dipping frames, often constructed from sturdy wood and capable of holding multiple wicks, were inspected weekly for signs of wear and tear, particularly the hinges and joints, which were prone to loosening due to constant use. Additionally, candle makers were responsible for maintaining their workspaces, ensuring that the area was free from grease and wax buildup, which could pose fire hazards. Financial records and costs associated with candle production were meticulously documented by guild members. The guilds would maintain ledger books, often bound in leather, which recorded the costs of raw materials, labor, and sales. The price of tallow fluctuated significantly throughout the medieval period. For instance, in 1290, the price per pound of tallow was recorded at 1.5 pence, while by 1340, it had risen to 3 pence due to increased demand and reduced supply caused by a series of poor harvests. Beeswax, being a more premium product, commanded higher prices, often reaching 12 pence per pound during peak demand periods around Christmas and Easter when candles were in high demand for religious services. Labor costs were also a considerable factor in the financial records of candle makers. Skilled artisans, such as master candle makers, could command wages ranging from 6 to 10 pence per day, while apprentices, typically aged between 12 and 16, earned significantly less, often receiving only 1 penny for their efforts. The duration of an apprenticeship usually lasted 7 years, during which apprentices were expected to learn the intricacies of candle making, including the proper handling of materials and adherence to guild standards. Job descriptions within the guild structure were highly defined. The master candle maker held the highest position, responsible for overseeing production, managing finances, and ensuring compliance with guild regulations. Masters were also tasked with training apprentices and journeymen, who were skilled but not yet masters themselves. Journeymen, often aged 18 to 25, were permitted to work independently and could take on their own apprentices. Their wages were typically 4 to 6 pence per day, reflecting their intermediate level of skill. The role of apprentices was primarily focused on learning the trade, which involved a variety of tasks, including the preparation of materials, cleaning of tools, and assisting in the actual candle-making process. They were often responsible for measuring and cutting wicks to the appropriate length, which, according to guild specifications, should measure between 10 to 12 inches in length for standard candles. The precise length of wicks was considered essential, as too long would result in excessive burning time and too short would lead to poor combustion and soot production. The guild regulations provided a clear framework for these specifications, noting that standard candles meant for general use should have a burning time of approximately 5 hours for every inch of candle length. The technical specifications governing candle production were formulated in great detail. The diameter of standard candles was restricted to 1 inch for common use, while ceremonial candles, often used in religious contexts, could be as thick as 3 inches. The length of these ceremonial candles could reach up to 36 inches, though they were generally produced in shorter increments for practical use. The burning characteristics of candles were also a subject of guild scrutiny, with regulations stipulating that a candle should burn steadily without excessive flickering or dripping, which could be attributed to improper wick length or inconsistent wax quality. The color of candles was also regulated, with white candles made from beeswax being preferred for religious ceremonies, while darker tallow candles were often used in domestic settings. Candles were often adorned with simple decorative elements, such as embossed patterns or colors, which could denote their quality or intended use. These embellishments were typically the responsibility of the master candle maker, who would oversee the decorative aspect of candle production. In summary, the construction methods and materials, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel roles, and technical specifications. Conversely, in the southern regions such as Italy and parts of France, the guilds predominantly favored beeswax, which was more expensive but offered a superior quality of light and scent. The production schedules in these locales were influenced by the cyclical nature of beekeeping, with production peaking during the late spring and summer months when flowers were abundant. The guilds would implement rigorous scheduling to coincide with the flowering season, ensuring that the maximum quantity of wax could be harvested while maintaining a sustainable approach to beekeeping practices. When comparing the candle-making guilds of Ghent to those in Florence, one notes not only the differing materials but also the varied approaches to wick length specifications. In Ghent, the guilds would often produce longer wicks, averaging around 12 inches, to cater to the demands of the affluent merchant class that preferred a longer burn time for their elaborately crafted candelabras. In contrast, Florentine guilds favored shorter wicks, usually around 6 inches, to accommodate the more intimate settings of home dining and social gatherings, where shorter, more decorative candles were favored. These regional characteristics were further accented by the local guilds' annual festivals, where candle quality was often showcased and competitions for the longest and most robust candles were held, reinforcing local identities and rivalries. The celebrations were not merely social, they served as critical moments for guild members to discuss production techniques, share secrets of wick making, and negotiate the prices of raw materials. #evolution over different time periods. The evolution of candle production scheduling and wick length specifications can be traced through several distinct periods, each influenced by broader socio-economic changes, technological advancements, and shifts in consumer preferences. In the early medieval period, roughly from the 5th to the 10th centuries, candlemaking was a rudimentary craft. The guilds operated under the auspices of local authorities, with production largely dictated by the liturgical calendar. Candles were primarily made for religious purposes, and their specifications were standardized to meet the needs of the church. During this time, the average wick length was approximately 8 inches, a practical size that accommodated the simple molds used for casting candles. As Europe transitioned into the High Middle Ages, 11th to 13th centuries, the rise of towns and the establishment of trade routes led to increased commerce and consumerism. Candlemaking began to evolve from a primarily utilitarian craft into a more specialized trade. Guilds became more formalized, and production scheduling became increasingly sophisticated, driven by the demands of a burgeoning urban populace. The average wick length began to vary significantly depending on the intended use. For instance, candles for public festivals might extend up to 18 inches, while those for personal use remained around 6 to 10 inches. The late medieval period, 14th to 15th centuries, marked a turning point in candle production. The introduction of new techniques, such as dipping and molding, allowed for greater consistency in wick length and overall candle quality. Guilds began to keep meticulous records of production schedules, leading to a more systematic approach to scheduling that factored in seasonal demand fluctuations. During this time, the average wick length stabilized around 10 inches for standard candles, although decorative and ceremonial candles could feature longer wicks as guilds sought to impress their clientele. ########Bureaucratic regulations and laws. Bureaucratic regulations surrounding the candle-making guilds were extensive and often dictated by local, regional, and even national authorities. These regulations were primarily aimed at ensuring quality control, fair trade practices, and the economic stability of the guilds. One of the most significant pieces of legislation impacting candle production was the Statute of the Candlemakers, enacted in various forms across many regions. This statute outlined specific guidelines regarding the types of materials permissible for candle making, mandating that only tallow or beeswax could be used, thereby preventing inferior products made from other fats from entering the market. Furthermore, it established strict penalties for guild members who were found to be using substandard materials. In addition to material regulations, laws also dictated the maximum and minimum wick lengths to ensure uniformity in production. For instance, a decree from the Guild of Candle Makers in Paris stipulated that no candle produced for sale could have a wick longer than 12 inches unless expressly authorized for ceremonial purposes. This regulation not only aimed to standardize the product but also prevented the market from being flooded with excessively long candles, which could pose a fire hazard in cramped urban environments. Moreover, guilds were often required to submit annual reports detailing their production outputs, sales volumes, and even the types of candles produced. These records, which were meticulously kept by guild clerks, provided a wealth of data that helped local authorities assess the economic health of the candlemaking industry and adjust regulations accordingly. This bureaucratic oversight ensured that the guilds remained profitable while simultaneously safeguarding community interests. ###supply chain and logistics. The candle-making guilds operated within a complex supply chain that involved several key components: raw materials, labor, production, and distribution. Understanding this supply chain sheds light on the logistical challenges faced by guilds throughout the medieval period. The primary raw materials for candle production were tallow and beeswax, each of which required its own supply chain. Tallow was generally sourced from local butchers, and the availability of this resource was closely tied to the agricultural cycles of livestock farming. Guilds often established contracts with local farmers to secure a steady supply of tallow, negotiating terms during the autumn slaughtering season when tallow was most abundant. Beeswax, on the other hand, was more challenging to source. The production of beeswax was dependent on the health of local bee populations and the availability of flowering plants. Guilds often relied on local beekeepers, forming symbiotic relationships that ensured a steady supply of wax for their candles. This reliance on local beekeepers led to specific logistical considerations. For example, guilds would often synchronize their production schedules with the blooming of certain plants, ensuring that they could acquire the freshest wax. Once raw materials were procured, the production phase involved a series of meticulous steps, including rendering tallow, molding, and dipping. The logistics of production were often hampered by seasonal weather conditions, which could affect the quality of the materials and the ability to produce candles consistently. For example, during particularly hot summers, tallow could spoil more quickly, necessitating expedited production schedules to prevent loss. Distribution was another critical aspect of the supply chain. Guilds often had established routes for the transportation of candles to local markets, fairs, and even. In conclusion, the tedious and intricate history of medieval guilds' candle production scheduling and wick length specifications reveals a complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and meticulous record-keeping. Each of these elements contributed to the overall structure and function of the candle-making industry, underscoring the importance of candles not only as sources of light but as integral components of medieval economic and social life. The legacy of these practices resonates through the centuries, providing a window into the lives of those who labored within the shadows of flickering flames. The monotonous history of medieval guilds' candle production scheduling and wick length specifications. Part 9, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The candle production guilds of medieval Europe, while united in their overarching function of providing illumination, exhibited an intriguing array of regional variations that reflected local customs, resource availability, and market demands. In the northern regions, particularly in Scandinavia, the harsh climate necessitated an increased reliance on candles, given the long winter nights. Consequently, the guilds in this area focused on producing long-burning tallow candles, often supplemented with intricate designs to maximize both utility and artistry. The common practice of incorporating local animal fats yielded a distinctive, albeit less fragrant, product that catered to the specific needs of the populace. Conversely, in southern European regions, such as Italy and Spain, the guilds favored beeswax candles, which were not only prized for their superior burning qualities but also for their pleasant aroma. The production of beeswax candles required meticulous attention to detail, from the careful harvesting of wax from hives to the precise methods of filtration and molding. The guilds in these areas often established intricate trade networks with local apiarists to ensure a steady supply of high-quality wax, leading to a more dynamic and competitive market. In France, the guilds were known for their adherence to strict quality standards, which were codified in local regulations. The Parisian guilds, for example, mandated that all candles produced within the city limits conform to specific dimensions and wick lengths, thereby ensuring uniformity and quality. This regulatory framework not only protected consumers but also fostered a sense of pride among candle makers who adhered to the guild's esteemed reputation for excellence. Part 10, Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of candle production scheduling and wick length specifications can be traced through several distinct phases, each marked by changes in technology, economic conditions, and cultural preferences. In the early medieval period, candle production was largely rudimentary, with artisans employing simple methods of dipping and molding. The processes were labor-intensive, and as a consequence, the scheduling of production was dictated by the seasons. During the summer months, when daylight was plentiful, candle production would naturally decline, allowing artisans to focus on other trades or agricultural activities. However, as the feudal system began to wane and commerce expanded during the High Middle Ages, the demand for candles surged. This period saw the rise of urban centers and an increasingly affluent merchant class, which in turn necessitated an evolution in production techniques. The introduction of standardized wick lengths became paramount, as the guilds sought to ensure that their products met the growing expectations of consumers. The meticulous documentation of wick sizes, often ranging from 3 to 12 inches, became a hallmark of quality control, with each guild maintaining its own specifications that would later be compared to competitors. The late medieval period witnessed further refinement in both production scheduling and wick length specifications. The advent of the printing press in the 15th century allowed for the dissemination of technical manuals that detailed best practices in candle making. Guild members began to adopt more sophisticated scheduling techniques, employing calendars that integrated lunar cycles to optimize production cycles in alignment with market demand. The shift towards a more systematic approach to scheduling marked a significant departure from the haphazard methods of earlier periods, enabling guilds to increase output efficiency while maintaining product quality. Part 11. Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The bureaucratic landscape surrounding candle production was characterized by a labyrinthine web of regulations and laws that governed every aspect of the craft. These regulations emerged from the necessity of ensuring consistent quality and fair competition among guild members. In 1311, for instance, the Ordinance of the Candle Makers of London was enacted, stipulating strict guidelines regarding the materials permissible for use, the dimensions of candles, and the acceptable wick lengths. These regulations were enforced by appointed inspectors who conducted regular examinations of both production facilities and finished products. Furthermore, guilds were often required to keep detailed records of their production processes, including the quantities of wax purchased and the number of candles produced. Non-compliance with these regulations could result in severe penalties, including fines, expulsion from the guild, or even imprisonment. The emphasis on regulation not only served to elevate the standards of candle production but also reinforced the guild's authority within the community. As the medieval period progressed, the involvement of local governments in regulating candle production intensified. Municipal authorities recognized the economic significance of the candlemaking industry and sought to harness its potential through legislation. This culminated in the establishment of the Candle Makers Guild, which wielded considerable influence over local markets. The guild's regulations extended beyond mere production; they also encompassed trade practices, including pricing structures and sales territories. Such oversight ensured that the guild maintained its monopoly over the candlemaking trade, thereby safeguarding the livelihoods of its members. Part 12. Supply Chain and Logistics. The intricacies of the supply chain for candle production were often overlooked yet played a pivotal role in ensuring the smooth operation of the guilds. The procurement of raw materials, particularly wax and wicks, necessitated a complex network of suppliers and logistical coordination. In regions where beeswax was favored, guilds established relationships with local beekeepers to secure a reliable source of wax. These relationships were often formalized through contracts that outlined the terms of trade, including the quality and quantity of wax to be delivered. Tallow production, on the other hand, presented its own challenges. The process of rendering animal fat into usable tallow was labor-intensive and required specialized knowledge. Many guilds maintained their own rendering facilities, while others relied on local butchers or farmers for their supplies. The logistics of transporting tallow from rural areas to urban centers necessitated the establishment of regular delivery schedules, often dictated by the seasons when tallow production peaked. The transportation of finished candles, in addition to production records, financial ledgers documented sales transactions, expenses, and profits. These ledgers were often maintained in a dual-entry system, allowing for greater accuracy and accountability. The importance of accurate record-keeping cannot be overstated. It served as a safeguard against disputes and provided a clear historical account of the guild's activities. The evolution of record-keeping methods also mirrored broader societal changes. As literacy rates increased and the availability of paper improved, guilds began adopting more formalized methods of documentation. The use of written contracts and agreements became more prevalent, further solidifying the role of record-keeping in ensuring transparency and accountability within the candle production industry. In conclusion, the history of medieval guilds' candle production scheduling and wick length specifications is a tapestry woven from regional variations, evolving practices, bureaucratic regulations, intricate supply chains, and meticulous record-keeping. While seemingly mundane, these aspects collectively illustrate the complexity and significance of candle production within medieval society. The interplay of local customs, regulatory frameworks, and economic considerations shaped a craft that, while often overlooked, played an essential role in the daily lives of people across Europe. The monotonous history of medieval guilds' candle production scheduling and wick length specifications. In the study of medieval candle production, the guilds that governed the trade were not only instrumental in establishing the standards for wick length and the scheduling of production, but they also played a crucial role in maintaining the economic stability of the communities they served. This narrative delves into the minutiae of candle production, offering a thorough examination of minor historical figures and their contributions, specific case studies, comparative analyses with other regions, archaeological findings, and primary source quotations that, while entirely invented, are crafted to reflect the authenticity of the era. Minor historical figures and their roles. While the well-known figures of the medieval period often take center stage in historical accounts, the lesser-known individuals who contributed to the candle-making guilds provide a fascinating glimpse into the intricate workings of this trade. One such figure is Aldrich of Lotharingia, a lesser-known master candlemaker active in the late 12th century. Aldrich is believed to have been a member of the Lotharingian Guild of Candle Makers, which, according to the records, met semi-annually to discuss production techniques and quality control measures. Aldrich was responsible for introducing a new scheduling technique based on the lunar calendar, allowing candlemakers to optimize their production in alignment with the cycles of the moon. This innovative approach was documented in the guild's ledger dated 1185, where Aldrich is quoted as saying, "By the light of the moon, we shall measure our wax, for the shadows cast shall guide our hands." This sentiment reflects the belief in the natural world's influence on the craft and the careful planning that was integral to successful candle production. Another notable figure is Beatrix the Illuminator, who became the first female master in the Candlemakers' Guild of Bruges around 1250. Her work focused on the length and diameter of wicks, which were crucial for ensuring that the candles burned evenly. Beatrix's meticulous notes, preserved in the Guild archives, detail her experiments with different wick materials, including flax and cotton, and how each type affected burn time and brightness. She famously noted, "The width of a wick is the heart of a candle, too thick, it suffocates, too thin, it falters." These observations would later inform the Guild's official standards for wick specifications. Specific case studies with dates. One prominent case study that exemplifies the Guild's candle production scheduling can be found in the records of the London Candle Makers Guild, which implemented a strict production calendar in 1302. The schedule dictated that production would begin at the first full moon of spring, coinciding with the increased demand for candles as the days lengthened. Each member of the Guild was assigned specific quotas, with penalties for those who failed to meet their obligations. For instance, a case from April 1304 illustrates the consequences of failing to adhere to the schedule. Master Edwin of Westminster, who was responsible for producing 100 candles, reported a delay due to a shortage of tallow. The Guild's council convened and ultimately imposed a fine of 3 shillings, accompanied by a public reprimand. The minutes of the meeting, which have been preserved, state, "Let it be known that Master Edwin hath failed in his duty, and by the law of our Guild, he shall pay for his negligence." Another significant event occurred in 1347, when the Guild of Rouen established a new standard for wick length as a response to increasing competition from neighboring regions. The Guild's assembly, held on the feast day of Saint Aloy, resulted in the decision to standardize wicks at 12 inches in length, a regulation that was met with some resistance from local producers who favored shorter wicks for their lower production costs. The Guild's official statement read, "To ensure a flame fit for a lord, we shall bind our wicks to the standard of 12 inches, for in length lies the nobility of light." Comparative analysis with other regions. A comparative analysis of candle production practices across different regions reveals intriguing similarities and differences in scheduling and wick specifications. The English guilds, particularly in London and York, tended to focus heavily on the use of tallow, while the French guilds, such as those in Paris and Rouen, favored beeswax for its superior quality and burn characteristics. This preference for beeswax in France can be traced back to the influence of the Catholic Church, which often commissioned candles for liturgical purposes, demanding a higher standard of quality that tallow could not provide. In contrast, the Italian city-states, such as Florence and Venice, approached candle production with a focus on artistry and decorative elements. The guilds in these regions often scheduled their production in rhythm with local festivals, aligning the release of intricately designed candles with important religious and civic events. For instance, the Florentine Candle Makers Guild established a tradition of producing elaborate candles for the Feast of San Giovanni, which resulted in an annual spike in production schedules around June each year. The guilds in these regions often utilized a variety of materials for wicks, including hemp, which was favored in Italy for its durability. The Venetian Guild, in particular, took great pride in their wicks, which were sometimes braided for aesthetic appeal and improved burn quality. A local chronicler from the period observed, "In Venice, the wick is not mere string, it is the thread of life itself, woven with care for the illumination of our souls." This dedication to quality and aesthetics contrasts sharply with the more utilitarian approaches seen in the English and French guilds. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological findings have greatly contributed to our understanding of medieval candle production and the standards established by various guilds. Excavations in London have unearthed remnants of candle molds. In conclusion, the history of medieval guilds related to candle production scheduling and wick length specifications is a tapestry woven with the contributions of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and primary sources. Each of these elements plays a crucial role in understanding the complexities of this seemingly mundane yet fundamentally important aspect of daily life in the medieval period. Ultimately, the minutiae of scheduling and specifications may appear tedious at first glance, yet they reveal a rich narrative of economic practices, social structures, and the relentless pursuit of quality in an age where light was both a necessity and a luxury. As one reflects on this exhaustive exploration, it becomes evident that the humble candle, shaped by the hands of diligent craftsmen and the oversight of guild regulations, remains a symbol of the era, illuminating not just the physical spaces but also the historical narratives of those who lived in the shadows of the past. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our tranquil journey through the monotonous yet fascinating history of medieval guilds, their candle production scheduling, and the specifications of wick lengths. As we have explored together, the world of candle making in the medieval period was much more than just a means to illuminate dark spaces. It was a tapestry woven with the threads of craftsmanship, community, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. From the meticulous planning that guilds undertook to ensure that production schedules synchronized with the rhythms of the seasons, to the careful attention given to the length and quality of wicks, we have delved into the meticulous nature of those who kept the flames of society burning brightly. Each candle crafted was not merely a source of light but a beacon of warmth and comfort, a reflection of the dedication and artistry of its maker. As we reflect on this history, we are reminded of the importance of patience and precision in our own lives. The guilds, with their carefully structured routines and their commitment to excellence, teach us that even the most repetitive tasks can hold beauty and meaning. The soft flicker of a candlelight, much like the gentle rhythm of our breaths as we prepare for sleep, can bring solace and peace after a long day. Thank you for accompanying me on this soothing exploration. I hope that the stories of the past have provided you with a sense of calm and relaxation, allowing you to unwind and let go of the day's worries. Remember, if you find yourself needing a little more comfort or a gentle nudge toward slumber, you can always replay this soothing narrative. It is my wish that you find serenity in these tales, like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves on a quiet evening. As you nestle into your cozy bed, may the thoughts of the craftsmen and their quiet diligence wrap around you like a warm blanket. Let the soft glow of candlelight illuminate your dreams, guiding you to a peaceful night filled with restful sleep and sweet visions. May you drift away, cradled in the embrace of tranquility, and awaken refreshed and renewed. So, dear listeners, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the soothing whispers of history guide you into the realm of dreams. Good night, and may your sleep be as peaceful as the flicker of a candle flame.